Right, now, let's talk about DACA. The big shock was the Supreme Court decision on Thursday. Now, I have to say, I consider myself an originalist when it comes to the Supreme Court. I like the constitutional conservatives. I was surprised by both the transgender decision and the DACA decision. I was not really that disturbed by the transgender decision because I thought at least it's a textually based decision. They didn't make up some new right in the Constitution, at least. They were basing it on a statute. I thought the arguments against the decision were good also, but it didn't bother me that much. The DACA decision blew my mind because if DACA is originally unconstitutional, how can there be so many roadblocks to reversing it? I mean, an ordinary citizen would expect that the role of the Supreme Court is to protect the Constitution, and yet here the Supreme Court just ducked and said, well, the way you rescinded DACA was not administratively proper, so we're going to allow this unconstitutional policy to stand until you can dot the I's and cross the T's. Now Trump says he's going to do just that. What can we expect from what Trump does on DACA in the next few days?
Yeah, the Trump administration is going to have to very carefully readdress the arguments for rescinding this program, because the majority opinion led by Chief Justice Roberts really got into, well, you should have considered this option and you didn't consider that option. I mean, it was such a bad decision for so many reasons. I mean, not just the results, but truly an activist decision. And you can absolutely tell I've found a bad decision when, the more ink that has to be spent to explain something, the more convoluted the decision is, the more clear sign it's a bad decision. And at the very beginning of the majority decision, they said in the first paragraph that the Trump administration had the authority to rescind this program. All parties agree. That's where the decision should have ended right there. It could have been very short and simple. But they turned themselves into a pretzel to argue, but we don't like how you did it. And they cite the Administrative Procedures Act. When President Obama didn't follow the Administrative Procedures Act when they set DACA up in the first place. They didn't even bother to create a proposed rule and go through the public comment process. The way Obama administration did it, he had Secretary Napolitano at the time of Homeland Security sign a memo. Yet, when then Acting Secretary Elaine Duke of Homeland Security issued an executive memo to rescind it, suddenly that's not allowed. And the Supreme Court claimed they didn't like how they did it. So it was a bad decision in many aspects. But because of the ink spent by the majority on different options, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Trump administration to not just address the issues or options that the justices raised, but to anticipate, what future judges how they too would rule in the subsequent orders from this case. It's not going to be easy.